Okay, I would like to turn the proceedings over to President Hanlon.
Well, you have a lot of people that come to faculty meetings. So anyway, good afternoon, and thanks to all of you for being here today for this dialogue about the future of the academic enterprise at Dartmouth. And let me begin by saying how privileged I feel to join the academic community here. You're an outstanding faculty, and I feel very fortunate to have you as my new colleagues. I've been impressed by the quality, the creativity, the impact of your work, and your commitment to both the teaching and research missions. And of course, collectively, we share the joy of working with some of the most talented, passionate, and engaging students you'll find anywhere in the world. So just to start, I feel very lucky to be here at Dartmouth. I'm also very excited about the opportunities that we share to take this already great academic enterprise to new levels, and I want to share with you my thoughts about that today. In my inauguration address, I highlighted some of the themes: experiential learning, learning technologies, research impact, affordability, and issued a call to action to build the academic enterprise around those themes. And so today is a chance to flesh that out a bit. Why do I think those are the right themes for Dartmouth? How do I envision those themes coming to life at Dartmouth? How can the faculty be involved? What am I asking faculty to do in my call to action? And this will take some time. These are meaty topics. And so my plan is to talk for something like 40 minutes, and then open it up for comments and questions and advice. Our discussion today is going to focus on Dartmouth's core missions: education and scholarship. And we're going to have a chance to talk again on November 18th on the topic of student life. Now, I'm well aware that those are not disjoint topics and that there are important dependencies between the two, but they're also both very complicated topics, and I thought to have a meaningful dialogue on both topics in one sitting was just too much, so I've split them in two. Needless to say, it's important for all of us to put on our Dartmouth hat today and focus on what's best for the institution as a whole, and set aside our own parochial interests or considerations of what might be best for our own departments or schools. And I'm going to organize my remarks today to go from 40,000 feet down to ground level. So in other words, I'm going to begin with mission and vision. I'm going to follow that with some discussion of the external environment and the forces that are shaping higher education today. So with that as context, I'm going to turn to the strategies that I think will make Dartmouth successful over the next decade. And then at the end, I'm going to end up with very concrete steps that I hope we can accomplish in the next couple of years. So that's the organization. And I would say that what follows is my best thinking at the moment, thinking that has been informed and tested through discussions with hundreds of you over the last 11 months. I've also benefited from the inspiring content in the strategic planning documents, and so I want to thank all of you who contributed time, energy, and ideas to that. And I've had hundreds of conversations with students, with staff, with alumni, with parents that have also helped shape my thinking. So let's get started. So in all these conversations, there's really been no disagreement on Dartmouth's core mission. It's twofold. It consists of our education mission, which is to prepare graduates who will go out and change the world for the better, and our scholarly mission, to advance the frontiers of knowledge so as to elevate understanding of the human condition, create works of art and intellect that enrich the human spirit, pursue the most meaningful opportunities that the world has to offer, and devise solutions to some of mankind's most pressing problems. There was also in these discussions, in these conversations, great alignment on what Dartmouth's goals should be relative to this mission. First, Dartmouth is best in class at the education mission. And this is a strategic advantage that we must not give up. And second, there is strong and broad-based interest to enhance the scholarly work done on this campus. And I should say that I fully support those two ambitions. Now let's talk about vision. Where do we want Dartmouth to be in 10 years? So let's do a thought experiment. Let's pretend that it is in fact 10 to 12 years from now. It's my last day as president. I'm addressing you to give you a report on Dartmouth. Mysteriously, you are all not only still on the faculty, but willing to come hear me talk. How is it I want this conversation to go? I tell you that Dartmouth is a magnet for human talent. We get our pick of the most talented students and faculty. Students are drawn to Dartmouth because of our distinctive, innovative learning experiences and the chance to work directly with our outstanding faculty. Faculty choose Dartmouth over their other top colleges and universities because of the exciting, path-breaking, innovative scholarship on campus and the opportunity to work with our enormously talented students. I report that the campus is academically energized, a site of intellectual innovation and risk-taking. Dartmouth is a place of big ideas and bold efforts. I note that Dartmouth has porous boundaries with the world. We're sending our students and faculty out into the world, and then we're inviting the world into our campus. Dartmouth faculty dare to take on some of the world's most complex issues, trying out-of-the-box approaches, working across disciplines, and far beyond the reaches of the Hanover campus. And likewise, I tell you, student life on campus is dominated not by the social scene, but by student efforts to make a difference in the world, working with peers and faculty on artistic and creative works, academic research, and taking ideas into action through social ventures and business startups. And Dartmouth is making an impact. I tell you about something like 5 to 10 major areas of challenge to mankind where people generally agree that the best work in the world is being done at Dartmouth. On the output side, I tell you that Dartmouth grads, at least those who don't launch their own businesses or social ventures, are a really hot commodity in the minds of recruiters. Not only because of their academic preparation, but also because of their leadership skills and their ability to translate intellectual learning into impact on the world. In short, I conclude to you, Dartmouth's footprint on the world has never been so large. Now, for sure, every element of that vision is in place today to some degree, but not as uniformly or as powerfully as any of us would like. And so our discussion today is really going to be about how we move towards that vision, mindful of the institution's history and culture, as well as the external context in which higher education is operating. So let me turn now to that external environment. Higher education has entered a period of great change. A statement I make knowing full well the time-honored tradition of academic leaders to yammer on about periods of change. But in this case, I actually believe it. And I believe it because of the powerful forces in the external environment that are driving higher education at this moment. So let's talk about a few of those. The first I'll mention is changes in the workplace. Volatility and disruption in any domain of activity you examine, and according to any measure you want to take, are at an all-time high. More than ever before, there's a premium on flexibility of mind, on having the confidence to innovate and take risks, and on being practiced at changing course when faced with failure. And so we are obliged to prepare our graduates for that. The workforce is becoming increasingly diverse, whether one's working domestically or certainly in the global economy. To be successful, our graduates must have the ability to work effectively with people from very different backgrounds and perspectives. We must equip them with cultural awareness and cultural humility. Let's talk about IT and its impact. It's interesting to note that the World Wide Web is college age, just under 20 years old. Yet I have a difficult time remembering exactly what life was like before the web. IT has changed everything about the way we live our lives, and it inevitably will change higher education in profound ways. So let's step back for a moment and imagine, look forward at how IT will change the way we educate. When I wrestle with that question, it helps me to think along a spectrum. At one end, I'll put data and information, facts about the world. In the middle, I'll put knowledge, the frameworks we create so that the facts that we see make sense to us. And at the far end, I'm going to put what I call wisdom, the skills to operate successfully in the world based on what we know. One clear consequence of the information age is that nobody will pay Dartmouth tuition to get information, right? Information is now a free and public good. If you want it, you go get it on your laptop. But the time's hard upon us when knowledge is also going to be a free public good. If you want to learn about Walt Whitman, or quantum mechanics, or artificial intelligence, you'll be able to view lectures by the great faculty at Dartmouth and MIT and Stanford. That's not to say I see a future where we will stop having lectures at Dartmouth. I'm not saying that at all. The back and forth and exchange of ideas in the classroom greatly elevates the learning experience. But what I am saying is that increasingly, our key value added, the reason great students will choose to come to Dartmouth has to be that we provide them with wisdom, the skills to operate effectively in the world, the ability to think critically, having a well-developed creative mind with the confidence to innovate and take risks, powerful communication skills, the ability to work effectively with people from different backgrounds and perspectives, numeracy and quantitative reasoning, being able to engage the arts and humanities, having a well-developed set of values and the integrity to act on them. If you were to ask me what parts of the strategic planning document spoke most powerfully to me, one passage I certainly would identify is from the Students of the Future section, which lists the skills that I just enumerated as the key outcomes for the education we provide our students in the future. Now, this is all good news for the liberal arts, because a liberal education has always focused on these generally applicable intellectual skills rather than static knowledge. So let me pause now and collect my thoughts. Looking at the external environment has led me to argue that wisdom, the skills to operate effectively in the world, will be the dominant outcome we aspire for with our students. I've also argued that amongst those capabilities, the well-developed creative mind, the confidence to innovate and take risks, as well as the ability to work effectively with those from different perspectives and backgrounds, are of emerging importance because of the job market, the workplace. And I've noted that IT offers amazing opportunities to transform the way we teach and learn. Okay, so what does this say now about strategies for Dartmouth if we're going to remain at the forefront of teaching and learning? First, it tells us that we should emphasize experiential learning, learning by doing, action-based learning if you're in the business school world. Because you develop wisdom, you develop these skills to operate effectively in the world through active rather than passive learning. Think about the process of developing the creative mind, building confidence to innovate. You surely don't get that by sitting in a classroom and having someone talk to you. You learn that by doing, by trying, by failing, by being coached, by trying again. You know, I'm a firm believer in the old adage that it's easiest to ride a horse in the direction that it's moving. And experiential learning is definitely a direction that Dartmouth is moving. I'm, in fact, amazed and impressed by the instances of experiential learning that are already going on in this campus. Project-based engineering and design courses, with Engine 21 being the grandfather of these. Ann Kepachinski leading students in Environmental Sciences 50 to develop concrete actions that will make our campus operations more sustainable. Mary Flanagan involving students in efforts to combat prejudice and advance social good through games. Jeff Charlotte engaging students with the Upper Valley through the 40 Towns Project. Rocky's Policy Research Shop, which places students in the roles of staffers in state legislatures. Hood Interns, each of whom develops their own public exhibits. The Pagnucci Fellows, the Friedman Presidential Fellows, service learning through Geisel and Tucker. I could go on all evening, but you don't want me to do that. So experiential learning, I think Dartmouth is probably state-of-the-art in experiential learning right now. I'm very, very impressed. So given this strong foundation, what's left to accomplish? What is the call to action for faculty in the experiential learning domain? First, we should ensure that students take away the outcomes that we intend from experiential learning activities. Not only the key intellectual skills that I discussed earlier, but also, and very importantly, an increased appreciation that deep thinking and the power of the mind are the most potent tools they have in addressing the world's complex challenges and opportunities. Practically, that means that we should equip students with relevant academic training prior to the experience and prompt them to reflect on what they've learned after the experience. For example, before we send students on a service learning experience to rural Kenya, we need to equip them with an understanding of the history and culture of the Maasai people. And after the experience, we should ask them to reflect on what they've learned. That example is on my mind because I spoke recently with one student who had returned from working in rural Kenya, who upon reflection had come to realize the incredibly important role that narrative played in the working of the village she visited. And importantly, this reflection was influencing the way that she was going about ongoing work that she was doing in US cities. So, to you, the faculty, with every experiential activity, learning activity we mount, you should ask how you might prepare students before the activity with relevant academic training and prompt reflection after. And as a faculty, we should design the mechanisms, whether through portfolios or some other device, for students to record and reflect on their experiential learning experiences and synthesize these over multiple activities and efforts. And second, I would ask you to push the creative boundaries, continue to push the creative boundaries in developing new, innovative experiential learning opportunities. In the undergraduate space, let's tap Dartmouth's professional schools, our outstanding professional schools. After all, if you think about what a profession is, it's really a framework to take intellectual learning and apply it to the real world. And that's why we already see some of the most innovative and well-developed experiential learning going on within Thayer, Tuck, and Geisel. And now a question for all of you, which I want to come back to in Q&A. Given the amazing things that are already going on this campus, in the same way that Princeton brands its senior thesis and Duke brands service learning through Duke Engage, should Dartmouth actively brand experiential learning as a key part of the Dartmouth academic experience? And if so, what would that look like? So let's return to that after I finish my remarks. All right, so let me move from experiential learning to IT and learning technologies. So learning technologies allow us great new tools to enhance the teaching that we do on campus. Now, it doesn't apply in every domain or in every course, I get that. But where it can be transformative, we should pursue the opportunity energetically. What will this look like? What do I imagine this will look like? So let me mention 4 areas. The first is outreach. IT platforms allow us to share our knowledge and expertise with a broad worldwide audience. MOOCs are the latest, and surely not the last generation of delivery tools. Using technology to share our knowledge with the world, it's a good thing to do. Dartmouth should participate. In the same way we open our libraries to the public, in the same way we invite the public to our most important lectures, we should be sharing our knowledge using these tools. But I am not a believer that MOOCs will transform higher education. In fact, of the 4 areas I'm going to mention, I think that outreach is, in fact, the least important, certainly the most heavily hyped of the areas where technology will impact our education. The second is engagement. It's become straightforward enough at this point to record lectures for broadcast that we have an opportunity to move moments of truly passive learning for our students to a technology platform so that we can more actively engage students during that time. You know, thinking about my own section of Math 11 this term, I have just over 30 hours together with the students. Precious little time for me to help them master a challenging, fast-moving set of mathematical concepts and tools. And I sure want them actively thinking during every minute of that time that we're together. And technology offers me ultimately the opportunity to do that. The third is analytics. We're in a position to collect amazing amounts of information about how our students are progressing through the learning curve. Used effectively, that information can help us understand how well our curriculum fits together, determine what works well or not in our own teaching, and diagnose deficits and deliver personalized tutoring to our students. This is an enormously exciting area in its infancy, and Dartmouth is ideally positioned to lead. The fourth area is collaboration. There's amazing experiments going on across higher ed where IT is allowing students to collaborate with each other, with faculty, with people across the globe. So outreach, engagement, analytics, collaboration, four tremendous areas where IT can actually change the way we teach. What I would ask of every faculty member is first, be curious and open-minded. Ask yourself whether there are moments of passive learning in your classes and what you might be able to do during that time that more actively engages your students. Open your imaginations to how technology could help you harvest information about student learning, to help you better diagnose and understand student strengths and deficits, gain insight into how sequences of courses fit together or not. Think creatively about how technology-based collaborations might enhance the learning your students do. This is an amazing opportunity space. Your creative thinking combined with the true commitment to teaching and learning can put Dartmouth at the forefront. I'm convinced of that. All right, let me move now from teaching and learning to the scholarship that we do on campus. And again, let me begin with a driving force from the external environment. Specifically, the complex nature of the challenges and opportunities facing the world today. Many of us grew up academically during a period of great reductionism. The driving philosophy was to reduce the world's phenomena to its smallest components. If we sequence the genome, we'll be able to cure all diseases. If we analyze how brains are wired, we'll understand creativity and feeling. If we can just sample weather data broadly and deeply enough, we'll understand global climate and weather patterns. Two things have resulted. First, we've developed wondrous technologies to measure fine-grained phenomena, and they've delivered amazing data sets to us. And second, we've learned that knowing the finest components doesn't actually give us all the answers. So instead, we now face a set of critical challenges that are complex in nature, complex in the technical sense, working out integrated behavior and emergent effects, combating adolescent substance abuse, transforming K through 12 education, creating a sustainable job base for this nation, using the arts as a force for urban renewal. I could go on and on. These are issues that cannot be addressed within a single discipline, even within a single school. So, an interesting observation is that the nation's great institutions of higher education are the only sites where the full range of expertise needed to take on these problems resides in a single place. And so it's become an urgent responsibility of the great colleges and universities to embrace these challenges, to stimulate interdisciplinary investigation and bold thinking. And we have a powerful example on our campus, bringing together sociologists, economists, physicians, policy experts, public health practitioners, Dartmouth has done more than any other institution to chart the way in healthcare delivery for this nation over the past several decades. Dartmouth's footprint in this crucial area is enormous. And that's a worthy goal, to catalyze Dartmouth's intellectual assets against other major challenges and opportunities. And to position us for that, I think we have steps to take. When I compare Dartmouth's intellectual assets to our peers, I see a fabulously talented, engaged set of undergraduates. I see a truly outstanding faculty. But what falls between what I call young scholars, our graduate student and postdoc cohorts, that middle part is thin. Not necessarily lacking in quality, but certainly lacking in quantity. So one strategy I think we need to employ is what I call fill the middle. Increase the flow of young scholars through Dartmouth. Many advantages will accrue. Young scholars bring us energy and new ideas. They come to us with a sense of urgency. They're just beginning their academic careers, and they are hungry. They push us, the regular faculty. They invite us into their work. They stimulate our thinking. And in doing so, they create an environment that is exciting and rich, and thereby helps us with recruitment and retention. And when young scholars leave Dartmouth and go out across the academic world, they enhance our reputation and spread the good word about our campus. Second, in order to reach the goal of increasing Dartmouth's scholarly impact on the world, we must expand the faculty. We are already below critical mass that we will need to undertake major new scholarly initiatives. And I've just identified two strategies: an emphasis on experiential learning and expansion of young scholars on campus that's going to stretch the regular faculty even further. I feel strongly that we are best served by organizing faculty expansion around areas of interest and impact. Hiring clusters of faculty in different disciplines and schools around a common theme so as to jumpstart interdisciplinary research and teaching on important academic or world issues. And I know that efforts have already been underway to imagine cluster hires, and there are some great ideas already in the hopper. But imagine hiring a cluster in Atlantic studies, crossing history, architecture, French and Italian, classical studies. Or a cluster of faculty from engineering, medicine, computer science, and anthropology that share a passion for developing health technology devices that can be inexpensively deployed and will be readily adopted by cultures in the developing world. Or a cluster built around financial markets, one of the greatest sources of volatility in the world, touching tuck, economics, government, and history. So third, I've mentioned filling the middle, hiring clusters of faculty. Third, beyond bringing in new talent, we must put in place mechanisms that help you, the current faculty, be more productive. Mechanisms that allow you to pursue new ideas, take risks, encourage you to engage in bold thinking, recognize and celebrate your accomplishments. So, 3 different ideas in the scholarly space. What's my call to action for faculty in the scholarly area? Well, number 1, engage with the new cohort of young scholars. Bring them into your research and allow yourself to be brought into theirs. Help us imagine themes for faculty clusters that will build on Dartmouth's strengths to accelerate the impact of our scholarship. And continue to do your great current research, but open yourselves to disruption. Be willing to engage in new ventures, new directions with new partners. Help us elevate the intellectual risk and energy on our campus. Okay, so I've covered a lot of ground really fast. Let me stop once again and pause and take stock. So I started with 2 long-term goals for the institution: remain at the forefront of teaching and learning, and increase Dartmouth's impact on some of the most important problems and opportunities facing academics in the world through our scholarly work. I've identified 5 strategies to achieve these goals. Stress experiential learning, lead in the use of learning technologies, increase the flow of young scholars through the institution, grow the faculty in clusters around areas of interest and impact, and put in place mechanisms to stimulate greater productivity and risk-taking by current Dartmouth faculty. All right, so given those goals, given those strategies, let's get down to concrete things. What would I like to do in the next couple of years? Now, some of these things you actually know about because they're already announced or underway. Number one is the Williamson building is erupting from the ground. This amazing new facility, a major investment of philanthropic and college resources, along with the recently awarded CTSA grant, congratulations, Alan, will energize our efforts to work towards innovative clinical interventions and outcomes research, making real impact on the world of health and medicine. Second, I recently announced the Innovation and Entrepreneurial Center for students, and Tillman and Tripp are helping head that up. This was funded through the generosity of several of our alumni entrepreneurs, and this facility will provide much needed support in one of the areas of experiential learning that is of particularly keen interest to our students. So that's helping with experiential learning. And third, I announced the Society of Fellows, which will be a major platform for increasing the flow of young scholars through Dartmouth. The plan is to begin with approximately 20 to 24 fellows, and I hope we'll be able to grow those numbers over the years to come. So 3 things towards those 5 strategies which you already know about. So let me turn now to some other ideas, high priorities for me that I hope to announce that we will launch over the next couple of years. First, I'm going to work to put together the resources for a major cluster hiring initiative, whereby we grow our faculty around areas of impact. You can help in the way I mentioned earlier. We need to identify themes around which to build clusters, themes that make sense for our campus. And ultimately, these themes need to arise from the faculty and be supported by the deans. I can't dictate them from the president's level, for sure. So over the next couple of months, the provost and deans will launch a process by which we'll ask for your best thinking, for your proposals. And I would ask that each of you engage in this creative process so we can get the very best ideas on the table. Second, I want to upgrade the infrastructure and organizational support for graduate studies. And when I say that, I mean the graduate studies, I mean the PhD and Masters of Arts and Sciences programs. One idea, which I think has merit, is to create a freestanding graduate school. This would be similar to the School for Advanced Study that was proposed as part of the strategic planning report. Under the current structure, the graduate dean and office report to the dean of the faculty, even though several of the graduate programs reside in the professional schools. So under a potential new structure, the dean of graduate studies and the graduate school would report to the provost. The graduate school would have responsibility for overseeing quality and integrity of the PhD and Masters of Arts and Sciences degree programs. The graduate school would provide a home for interdisciplinary graduate programs that cross departments and schools. And the dean of graduate studies would be charged for advocating at the provost level on behalf of graduate programs and students. Okay, another thing that I hope to get going in the next year or two. Amongst our units, the Thayer School is a site of research impact, it's a site of innovative experiential learning, and it's a site of interest in learning technologies. So in other words, it hits many of the strategies that I laid out earlier. It's a unit of academic excellence, and by any measure, it is well below critical mass. So it's a high priority of mine to significantly expand Thayer. There's an enormous upside for all of Dartmouth in doing so. Martin Wyburn is poised to announce a couple of initiatives that are aimed at helping you participate more effectively in the vision that I laid out. First, the Provost's office is set to launch a new funding program to support Dartmouth faculty as they pursue new and innovative research ideas. The program is funded through reallocation within the Provost's budget and my own budget, and details will follow shortly. Right? Thinking about learning technologies now. We don't expect faculty to be expert in learning technologies. And so, as we ask you to adopt them in your teaching and learning, we need to get you the help from those who are expert. So DCAL will be the focal point for getting you the support, and we'll partner with academic computing to develop the support model. And again, look for an announcement from the provost on this in the very near future. In addition to standing up support internally for learning technologies, we're seeking partnerships to help us advance in the learning technology space with outside partners. Upon the recommendation of a faculty task force, we're considering an agreement right now with a partner in the MOOC space. But in addition, we're in active discussions with potential partners who are thought leaders in the engagement and analytics space as well. And lastly, the Tuck School is one of our most outstanding assets, deeply committed to experiential learning and the study of issues that make a difference in the business world. In recent years, Tuck they've begun to grow their involvement with undergraduates by offering a number of courses. I'm encouraging their deeper involvement with undergraduates, and they are far along in planning for how they could expand their bridge program, offer business basic to interested students through the Entrepreneurial Center, and launch an innovative 4+1 program. Those will come at the expense of faculty time and energy, and so I also support growth in the Tuck faculty, some of which may come from the Faculty Cluster Initiative. So, many initiatives, much exciting work to be done. I'm enthused about the future. I'm excited about what we can get in place over the next couple of years together. Let me touch now on 3 important topics that you didn't hear me talk about. So the first is the provost search. The search is well along. It's very near its final stages. The finalist pool is outstanding, really terrific. And I want to thank all members of the search committee, especially the chair, Bruce Dutu. Where is Bruce? Is Bruce here? Hey, there's Bruce. Thank Bruce for their work. So the second and third topics are diversity of the faculty and globalization and global branding of our academic work. I'm strongly committed to both these objectives, and I'm a veteran in both these areas from my prior work. But the reason I'm not discussing them today is that every one of the finalists in the provost search is very well positioned to bring fresh ideas and experiences to help us move forward in both those areas. So rather than get out in front of the new provost, let me just say for today, let me state strongly and clearly that these are crucial priorities for Dartmouth. And while I have experience and ideas on both, as do all of you, I'm waiting for the new provost before we set out actual objectives and approaches. So let me turn now to the final topic, which is resources. So I've just talked about a boatload of ambitious new initiatives. Faculty cluster hiring, expanding there, new support initiatives for your work. How are we going to pay for them? So over the next decade, I assure you, Dartmouth will make a historic investment in the academic enterprise, but I want to outline how that investment is likely to take shape. And that brings me to the final consideration from the external context, which we, along with all of higher education, are facing. And that is the concern in this nation about the cost of higher education has reached crisis proportions, and for legitimate reason. If you look across higher education, cost of attendance has gone up 3 to 5% above any reasonable index of inflation for 40 years in a row. You might say, oh, well, that's sticker price. How about net funding? Well, net funding, it's a little better, maybe 2 to 4% above a reasonable index of inflation. But the traditional funding model is unsustainable, and it's very near a breaking point. There's no issue that I hear more about when I'm talking to alumni, when I'm talking to parents, when I'm talking to students, when I'm talking to government officials, than affordability. So, you should expect as faculty that Dartmouth is going to keep its tuition rates flat in real terms. So in other words, our cost of attendance is going to track in the future much more closely to some justifiable rate of inflation of our costs. Simultaneously, a second major revenue stream, sponsored research, is under tight constraint. I think we all know that. I think most of us would agree that federal spending on research will continue to decline in real terms as far out as the eye can see. So, to carry out the innovations, the bold initiatives that I've outlined above, we need to count on philanthropy and self-investment. The first is my responsibility, partnering with the deans and our very able development staff. And I'm optimistic, I'm very optimistic. Dartmouth alumni are as committed to this institution as they ever have been, and I am confident that we are going to bring historic levels of resources to this institution through gifts and endowment. But philanthropy is not going to be enough. We will need to self-invest as well by prioritizing all the activities we do, freeing up resources from those activities that are least effective or lowest priority, and moving them into initiatives for excellence and innovation. This is what any truly successful organization does, and we will need to do this as well. So this is my call to action to you in this area. Prioritization is difficult work. We need to do it together. So let me conclude my remarks right now where I began them by saying how privileged I feel to be at Dartmouth and how excited I am about the future that lies ahead of us. I know that we in this room share one thing in common, and that's a great love for this institution. And I am so looking forward to working with all of you to make it even greater than it is today. So thank you for your attention. I don't know how long that was, but it was about 40 minutes. I now would like to throw it open for questions, comments, thoughts, advice. So thank you.